Hi everyone, it's Jackie at Spare Room Studio and I'm back today to share my completed pages for July 2024. I'm a little bit early sharing them. I'm going in for a medical procedure tomorrow and I know that for a couple of days I probably won't be feeling like recording. And I've had a busy month. I've got quite a few books here. I worked in around 16 books and completed 30 pages if my bookkeeping is correct. And some of those pages were whips carried over from last month that I completed, but there are a lot of new ones, so I'll put some of these aside and get started. The first book is Jugan. It was a new book to me and I coloured quite a few pages because I enjoyed it so much. And I also had some fairly new acrylic paint markers that I hadn't really used, so I wanted to actually colour with them, and this book was perfect for colouring with acrylic paint markers. So I loved those colours, and I like the flat, solid, saturated colour for this book in particular. It works really well. So Jugan is a First Nations colouring book by Holly Sanders. And Holly has got some lovely artwork that is in more contemporary colours and not so traditional. And I took some inspiration from her work just to give me some ideas for different colours to use. And I really did enjoy this book. So this is one of the pages where I took some inspiration from that cover. And this is acrylic paint markers and water-based markers. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. The next one is acrylic paint markers on their own. And I really quite enjoyed those colours, and it was a nice colour, you know, to sit and actually just go with the flow, concentrate on watching the colour on the paper or the markers, how the paint flowed from the markers onto the paper. It was quite meditative and very relaxing. And this one is acrylic paint marker with Ohuhu alcohol markers and coloured pencils. And I quite enjoyed the combination of some realistic flowers, wild flowers, with the traditional style of artwork. It's a nice combination and those colours were really nice to work with as well. So I quite enjoyed that book. I think I'll be colouring in that quite a bit more. So the next one I have is Reptiloids. And I did several pages in this book this month. I'm getting closer to finishing this one. So this first page is Crayola Super Tips and Crayola coloured pencils with Jelly Roll Metallics. And this is a video on the channel. I use the markers like watercolours by colouring onto a ceramic plate and then lifting the colour off with a water brush. And I quite enjoyed that one. The next one is Crayola Super Tips and Crayola pencils. I wanted to do a few Crayola challenges where I just purely worked with Crayola products. That one was a buddy colour. Sorry, that's Hamish banging the tripod there. Buddy colour with Joe at 120 colours, and so was that one. The next one, I think this was a buddy colour with Joe as well. Just coloured pencils, and I think they started with Crayola coloured pencils and then expanded out to some other brands. You can see a little nose down there, little face. And this one is Crazy Art water-based markers, Crayola pencils and Jelly Roll metallic pens. some of these I coloured just in front of the TV. It's a really handy, nice sized little book. If you haven't seen the Reptiloids books before, this one here is like a Kirby Roseanne's or a Johanna Basford book, and that's the Reptiloids. So it's, you know, less than half the size of one of those books. So the pages are very quick to colour and they're a lot of fun. I like to use all these bright, vibrant, saturated colours on this book. So that is Reptiloids. Next I have Symphony of Cute Animals. Now these pages are not in order of colouring. Not necessarily anyway. I've tried to put the books in order, but I worked in some books several times over the month. So this one here is Inktense pencils, coloured pencils and Jelly Roll Metallic. And just show you some of the texture of the coloured pencil there. And I apologise for Hamish being there, but I'm not going to move him on. We've had a few rough days with him with the nerves, so we're just trying to take things very slowly and easy with him today. So I apologise if he knocks the camera or makes any noises. I've also had a lot of noise from the neighbours today as well. Their dog has been going crazy because they're having some work done, so it's been an all-round crazy day. This one is Crayola Super Tips and Crayola coloured pencils and Artex pencils, and this one was actually a video on the channel as well. And this book is Mythographic Animals by Joseph Kattenbang. And this one I really wanted to just keep trying these Crayola Super Tips as watercolours and get these very washy, wet in wet washes and blooming and bleeding type effects. And I use quite a lot of water on this page, and you might be able to see that although the pages are buckled, they are flattening as they're laying underneath a pile of heavy books, so it does settle down a little bit again. The next one is Ohuhu alcohol markers in the background up here and some of the crab. Crayola Super Tips down here and Crayola coloured pencils with Artex coloured pencils. And in this one I tried something a little bit different. I used hand sanitizer to create these bubbles into that background there where the marker is. And I just applied it with a Q-tip or a cotton bud. And I've got lots of watery effects down the bottom where the water-based markers are, and I've put some coloured pencil over the top. And I'm quite happy with the way that turned out too. But that was a bit of fun. I think I would like to experiment a little bit more with this hand sanitizer for getting some textured effects on alcohol marker backgrounds. And then the next one is water-based markers, coloured pencils, glaze pens and white acrylic paint pen. So this is another one that was very, very wet, and in here I used the was it the Inktense? Might have been some Inktense white that I used in there, and what I did was on the wet paper, my white Derwent Inktense pencil has a very blunt tip, and I just smush some colour in there when it's all wet, but you have to be very careful doing that because I nearly go through the paper sometimes and put holes in. Then I've done some splatter there, and I've also put some metallic and glaze jelly rolls into there as well. So it's got a bit of everything going on with that one. I wasn't sure if I liked it to start with, but it is growing on me. And now that the page is flattening back out again, it's looking much better than it was when I first finished the page. So it does make the pages pretty cockled and buckled, but it does flatten out quite a bit over time if you have the book stored with heavy things. And I could try ironing the page, but you have to be careful with that, because when the page is very much out of shape, ironing it can actually put creases into it. So I'm happy to leave that as it is. It doesn't faze me to have the, you know, the bumpy look to the pages. So this page here, I used so much water that I went through my blotting sheet. I forgot to move my blotting sheet, and I had some bleed through, which has since dried a bit lighter, and it went through to that page as well. So you can see I've had quite a lot of bleed through with that one. So that was Mythographic Animals. I'm sorry if you can hear some noise from my neighbours. I don't know what they're doing today. A Million Dogs is next by Lulu Mayo, and this one I finished a long time whip. This one was water-based markers with acrylic paint markers in the background. So all the dogs were done with a variety of Crayola super tips. I also used Faber-Castell connector pens. There's an acrylic paint marker in the background, and some of these little details have got a bit of coloured pencil on there as well. So I don't work in this book very often, although my granddaughter has started asking me to colour in it with her because she's got a copy as well. So you will start to see a few more as I finish some whips. So that's A Million Dogs by Lulu Mayo. Next I have Crystal Vogle's I won't even try and pronounce that. I think this is the... Oh, I did translate it and I've forgotten it again. Something World. I should write it down because my memory for these things is terrible. So this page is water-based markers and coloured pencils. It's various brands of each, and it's a long time whip, so I couldn't remember what all the brands were. But it was quite an unusual colour palette for me. I know I started it with the Crazy Art markers, but then I think I added lots of different ones in, and it's got coloured pencil over the top, and yeah, it's got quite a bit of different mediums going on in that one, but it looks quite pretty. And this is another nice little book to work in. So Crystal Vogle, that one. Next I have Gnomes in the Neighbourhood. I have marked this one. So Gnomes in the Neighbourhood. This one was a bit of a chore. I wanted to try Crayola super tips as watercolour in the background for the sky, and it did not bleed very evenly and it was a bit of a mess. So then I ended up using some brush tip water-based markers as well. I still didn't like it, and then ended up layering lots and lots of Crayola coloured pencil over the top of it. So eventually, it's not quite so bad, but it's not great either. So that ended up being quite hard work in the end. I don't know if you can see from the shine that it's really got quite a lot of pencil on there, and it's gone a little bit shiny. So some of the Crayola Super Tips worked okay for that watercolour effect here in small sections, but when it was in a big area it was blotchy and the paper soaked it up like it was a bit of paper towel. It was really bizarre how it worked. You can see there's quite a bit of bleed through. I used a lot of water in the end trying to blend it all out. But that one is flattening out again now as well. I find if you use a lot of water and your paper is quite buckled, by the time you've layered some coloured pencil on the top, sometimes that flattens it out a bit too. So that one is Gnomes in the Neighbourhood by Denise Klett. Next I have the Creatures of Ken Matuda, and I did, take that off, Crayola Super Tips and Crayola pencils for this one. And this one is a video on the channel as well. And I really enjoyed the Crayola Super Tips here. This really kick-started a little craze for me where I kept trying the pens over and over in different books to see whether I could get this effect in all of my books. And the answer is no, I couldn't. So it all depends on the paper of the book. But I particularly really enjoy this sort of look. And I was on a bit of a kick there for a while where I just kept trying the Super Tips in different books until I worked out, you know, what worked best. So I will definitely be doing a lot more of this because I found it really enjoyable as a process. I really like the results. And it's so fast and so easy, I will definitely keep doing it. So that is the Creatures of Ken Matuda, the Hachette Heroes French version. Next I have Colourful Time by Vogle. And this book has very strange paper. It's taking some time to get used to working in these books, but the artwork is amazing. It's got a lot of grayscale, and the grayscale can be difficult to work with as well. But this one is Crayola Super Tips and Crayola coloured pencil, I think. I'm not sure, no, it could be coloured pencil, could be a combination. I think I tried the Crayola and it didn't work very well, so then I went to Artex and Prismacolor. And again, I was hoping to get the watercolour bleeding and blooming in the background with those Crayola Super Tips, and it did work to a certain extent on this paper, but again, this paper is very absorbent. It almost feels like it has cotton, so I found that a little bit unusual. Some nice separation of colours there, and I found it quite unusual working on that level of grayscale as well. I don't know if it's the type of ink that they've used for printing or what it was, but it was a little bit challenging, but it ended up being a really nice page. And the Prismacolor pencils ended up looking quite painterly in their effect over the top of it all. So it was not really what I expected to happen, but it was still a nice result, and I shall be trying to get back to this book a little bit more often as well. So that's Colourful Time by Vogle. That's actually the first page in that book. I do have another very similar book by Vogle, and I've done a couple of pages in that one. So next I have Moonlight Mischief. I tried to get some R.J. Hampson pages in this month because I needed some nice, fun, relaxing pages, and this page is actually a video on the channel as well. And I worked extremely wet on this page. There was so much water flooding it. I thought that the page was going to be a complete goner, but it has actually flattened out quite well. There was a lot of bleed through, but I remembered to put my blotter sheet there, so that was good. But it's surprisingly flattened out a lot. Very, very surprising. So that one was actually a combination of Crayola markers, the Crayola Pipsqueaks, which are marketed to children, for children specifically. Super Tips, the Click retractable markers, and I used Crayola pencils. I also used Artex pencils, Prismacolor pencils, and Jelly Roll Metallic, and I think there's even some glaze there too. So it has a bit of everything, and acrylic paint, white acrylic paint pen. So it's had everything thrown at this page. You may be able to see there is some very intense wrinkling there. But I was really quite happy with the way the result ended up. And I'm hugely surprised that it's flattening out as much as it has as well. So that was a nice page to colour. I did enjoy that one. So if you want to see how much water actually went onto that page, check the video out. So that's R.J. Hampson's Moonlight Mischief. Next I have Fantastic Zoo by Ken Matuda, I think it's pronounced. And this was a test with some different materials that I hadn't used in here before. I've only coloured a couple of pages in this book. So I tried out the Staedtler double-ended fibre tip pens, which I coloured onto the plate with and picked up with the water pen. I used a few Lyra Rembrandt pencils on the whale and Jelly Roll metallic pens for the mandala patterning. And there's also a little bit of Crayola Super Tips in the mandala patterning as well, the pastel set. I'm not sure if you will pick up on any of the metallic. It can always be a bit tricky to photograph and to get on video the metallic, but yeah, it just gives it a nice little sheen in some different places. And again, this paper did that effect extremely well. Dropping clean water into the wet areas resulted in those effects, and I'm very happy with that. And I only had minimal bleed through on this page as well. So that was actually quite surprising. I expected it would bleed through a lot more than that. But that was a really, really quick, easy colour. I think some of these more simple drawings don't need to be overworked, and the simple watercolour washes are actually quite handy for those. And it's just very quick and very easy, very relaxing. So that's Fantastic Zoo. Next I've got Serendipity by R.J. Hampson, and I've done a few in this one. They're not all on Instagram yet, so I will be putting them up onto Instagram if you're a follower of the Instagram account as well. This one is Staedtler double-ended fibre tips with Artex and Prismacolor pencils. What I was doing this month was, once I found a supply that I liked, I then went and tried it in a few different books just to see whether I could replicate the same results in all books or whether they behave differently, and most times they behave a bit differently. So just using a combination of Amazon printed books and other books to see what would happen. And this one I decided not to overwork it as well, so I used the watercolour effects for the base and then put some pencil on here, but I haven't been very careful about how I've done things, and I also used some marker directly onto the page, and I just felt like some of these pages didn't need that really highly blended, detailed, precise work on it, and I just went for some quick pages, and I have really enjoyed that, so I think I will probably be doing that a bit more often. I'm going to be a little bit more, I'd hate to say slapdash, but a little bit more relaxed in how I do it, and whether I stay in the lines or go over the lines or I let it bleed wherever, I'm going to try not to let that bother me at all and just go with the flow and see what happens. So this page here is, pardon me, Ohuhu alcohol markers with Crayola pencils and Jelly Roll metallic pens, and I struggled a little bit blending the colours here in the sky. That was all alcohol marker base, and I just didn't choose my colours very wisely, so I had a bit of trouble blending there. Then I went over it with coloured pencils and also water-based markers, and just tried to do the best I could, but it isn't my greatest work, but it is a page that's finished and I'm happy about that. So it has some metallic gold on there as well. I'm not sure if there was pencil. Yes, there is, the Crayola pencils on there. The pencils were just really to add in some extra definition and some texture back to the alcohol marker, like here on the mountains. I like to sometimes do that because the alcohol marker can look very flat, which is great for some pictures. That's exactly what you want for some pictures, but other times I like to bring that little bit of texture back in. So that is that one. And then my one and only Christmas in July is this one here with various water-based markers, including Faber-Castell connector pens and the Staedtler double-ended fibre tip pens. And it has some shiny metallic Jelly Roll pen as well, but no pencil on this one. It's just all purely water-based markers used as a wash, and also colouring directly onto the paper and then blending it on the paper. There's some unblended marker directly onto the paper. And I didn't want to go with traditional Christmas colours. I always seem to go for red and green and gold, so I wanted to try something a bit different. So you can see the markers have bled through quite a bit. But the great thing about these single-sided Amazon books is that doesn't matter if it does. So that's it for Serendipity by R.J. Hampson. Then a very new to me book, I bought this in the Amazon Prime sales, the Rita Burman, I think it's My Spring Walk, or somebody suggested it might be My Spring Stroll. So most of you would be familiar with this book. Now I coloured the right hand side on camera, and I used Derwent Inktense pencils and then went over the top with, I think it was Prismacolor and Artex pencils, and also some sparkly Colorette gel pens for something different. I don't think that's going to show up too well. So I did that side on camera, and then off camera I coloured the other side here with water-based markers and Crazy Art pencil, and I used a combination of drawing with the marker directly onto the paper and then blending it on the paper, and also the colour onto the plate and watercolour wash technique on that side, and that has bled through a little bit there and up there. The Derwent Inktense didn't really bleed through on that page. So that's the double spread, and on camera it doesn't really look a lot different. The colours are a little bit different, but I just wanted to show you that really it doesn't matter what you use. You quite often have your own style that tends to out in the end anyway, so regardless of what I use, I still end up with that very bright, colourful, vibrant, saturated look, whether it be water-based markers or the Inktense. So I quite enjoyed that one as well. That's my first colour in this book. As I say, it's only pretty new to me. I only had it a few days and decided that I wanted to jump in and colour it straight away. So that's Rita Burman. And this one I'm not 100% sure what the pronunciation is, Mulganai or Mulganai. A First Nations colouring book by Emma Hollingsworth. I've had this one a little while and I don't colour in it very often, but now that I've got the acrylic paint markers, I think I will be using these books a lot more often. This one I actually coloured with Ohuhu alcohol markers, and I've used a little bit of the white acrylic paint pen to put some details back in there. And this one I wanted to go for more earthy, traditional colours, but I've been quite loose in my colouring with the alcohol markers, so I haven't tried to go for a very finely blended look. I've tried to leave some bits of white, some brush marks. This was using the chisel tip end. But I didn't want to blend every line and texture mark out in this one. I wanted it to look a little bit more like a painting rather than just colouring. So once again, it was nice to just sit and, you know, it was quite meditative doing this page and the background and so on, and then reintroducing some details on top of it again. So that's Emma Hollingsworth, Mulganai. Let's hold that up for you to see. First Nations colouring book. There's a series of artists that Thames and Hudson have published, which is really nice. This one is the new version of Fantasy Tiny Homes that I was lucky to win in a giveaway by Russell on his subscriber giveaway. He does a colouring page and a free subscriber giveaway on his newsletter. And this one is Artex pencils, and then I decided to bring in some of the watery look with Staedtler double-ended fibre tip markers and Crazy Art markers used very wet, and gold metallic jelly roll, some white acrylic paint pen, and the Crazy Art markers did some really unusual bleeding effects. This almost looks like a tie-dye effect. And what happened here was that I'd put different colours very, very wet, and then with the water brush I just squeezed some clean water into it, and that is how it all separated and bled. And I really quite enjoyed that. And then I've just used some acrylic paint pen to reinstate some white back into areas, but I particularly like the way it's separated some colours there, and it really does remind me of tie-dye. I had lots of bleeding where colours bled where they weren't meant to bleed, and so on, but I've decided that I'm just going to go with that look, and I just put some details back in with marker over the top when it had all dried. But I found that quite interesting, and the combination of the solid saturated colour pencil plus the watery bleeding and washes was quite effective, I thought. So that's R.J. Hampson's Fantasy Tiny Homes, the newly re-released updated book. And then the last book that I have is Mythomorphia by Kirby Rosannes. And I have to apologise, Poet Spice and I are doing some buddy colours, but I've finished mine and I've just decided to post them because otherwise I'll forget all about them. So we chose to do these pages. I'm not sure if Poet has got hers done, but I knew that if I didn't jump in and do them, I was likely to forget some of the pages that I'd promised to do people. So this one is Faber-Castell Connector pens and Artex pencils over top with some shiny glaze pens in here as well. And it's a bit too big to show it all on screen at once, so that's the other side. What happened with this one was I put the colours on in the background and wasn't 100% happy with the way they were all blending. I wanted that neon sort of glowing look, but wasn't 100% happy with them. So then I wet the pages with a clean water brush and lifted some colour back off because it was all too solid. Pardon me. And then I've used, I think that might be Prismacolor White there. That just put some highlights back in, and I was happier with that then. But I didn't want to go with like the realistic colours on this one. I wanted it to look a bit more like a fantastical fantasy page. So hence we've got blue mushrooms, blue trees, you know, the fluorescent sky. And in the end, I'm happy with it. But through the colouring of this double page spread, there were times where I felt like it was really stuck in those ugly stages before it moved on. So there is that one, and we also decided to do this one was going to be for, I think it's Hot Guys for Summer for Poet, or Hot Guys Summer for Poet, something like that, the hashtag that Poet Spice has got going on. So I used acrylic paint pen in the background there, and Faber-Castell Connector pens, and then I've used some metallic jelly roll pens. I don't think there's any pencil on this one at all, or am I wrong? I'm not really very sure. There may be a tiny bit of coloured pencil in some areas, but it was pretty much the Faber-Castell Connector pen on the figure, and then lots of metallic gel pen. So that one worked out quite well. And then the last one, which I've only just finished, this has been a bit of a work in progress for a little while. I've been working on it in between other pages because it is a humongous, as my granddaughter would say, humongous page. An awful lot of details, and I've actually taken the advice of Axic Fumbles on Instagram and used the black acrylic paint pen to actually black out a lot of the details. There's lots of rocks and some more, you know, water splashes and smoke, and it just was too much. I could not see a way of how to colour it all without it being too confusing. I just, you know, I was confusing myself. I think I put a few too many colours into the dragon, and then I just didn't know where to go with it. But this is how it has ended up. And there is some metallic pen on some elements, on the lanterns, just to give it a bit of sparkly shine. So it's hard to get this one in fully as well because it's such a big book. So there you go. That was the last page to be finished just this morning, actually. So that one has got black acrylic paint pen, water-based markers. I did have some bleed through because I've used the markers directly on the page and then blended it with the water brush. So I could possibly save that, but I think I've got another copy of this book, so I'm not too worried about it. And it definitely bled through here, but I don't know that that's a page that I'm going to colour anyway. So, so the black acrylic paint pen, water-based markers, and there is some coloured pencil on there. There is some white acrylic paint pen and the sparkly metallic jelly roll pens. I think that's everything. There's a couple of brands of water-based markers that I've used there. Whatever was to hand at the time when I felt like colouring on this got used, but it didn't get coloured in one sitting. This was coloured over pretty much the whole of the month I've been working on this one, and I don't personally like to work that way very often, so I don't think I'll be doing that again, because part way through I really lost interest in it. But then it's such an amazing picture that it, you know, it didn't seem right to not finish it either, so I just kept going. So that one is Mythomorphia by Kirby Rosanis. So there you go, quite a varied month again. I certainly focused a lot on water-based markers and watercolour type effects. As I say, it really captured my interest and I really enjoyed it so much that I just wanted to keep trying it in all those different books to see, you know, what could be achieved in the various books. And I went for sort of some really nice pages that I'm really happy with to some that were quick, like this one, not very polished, but I still like that as an image. I really did enjoy some of these types of pictures that I did. They were probably my favourites. That was a very surprising one. But I think this month, this guy might be my favourite one. So let me know if you had a favourite. Let me know what you think of this preoccupation that I've had with the super tips and the watercolour. I've tried to sort of do some different subjects, although I do seem to have done a lot of animals this month. Even though they've been, you know, different illustration styles. Had varying success with, you know, the pages. And this one was certainly a surprise for me, not only because it was a fairly new subject matter to me, but working with the acrylic paint markers was really different as well. So, you know, from working that way to just incorporating them into a background, I've tried some different mediums, some very different subject matters, very different styles. It's been a big month. Okay, so sorry for knocking that camera and for Hamish knocking the camera earlier. Thank you for putting up with this one. It's a slightly longer one, but there were a lot of books to get through. And next month will be a bit of a surprise. I don't know what's going to happen. As I mentioned, I'm having a medical procedure tomorrow, but it's not a big procedure in itself, but it's a test procedure, and the results of what happens in the test phase will determine whether I go on to have another procedure at the end of the month, the middle of the month. So there's a lot of unexpectedness for the next couple of weeks, but thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. For those of you who are watching the videos, I do really appreciate it. I appreciate you all commenting, sharing your thoughts with me, giving me feedback and encouragement. It is all greatly appreciated. So I hope you've all had a great month as well, and you've enjoyed seeing these, and I will see you really soon. Bye now.